I'm Dustin. Welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. Heading into Week 8, and if you need a running back on the wire, not a bad week. There's lots of choices heading into Week 8. Like I always say in these videos, I like to mention that I rank these in order on how I would pick them up based on 0.5 PPR. I shoot this before Monday night games, so keep that in mind. And I always start with my pickup of the week, kind of the guy that I think is going to get a ton of attention, so their ownership has to be somewhat low. And this is brought to you by FanDuel. Get into our Beat the Experts game. If you win the cash like you normally would. It's a $5 game. But you also, if you win and you beat all the experts, top two guys, get a free entry into the next week's Sunday Million, which is a $10 entry. So be sure to get into our game, click on the link, sign up if you haven't already. And the pick of the week for the second week in a row is Marlon Mack. Still only on 55% of leagues. That number is going to skyrocket after what he did Week 7. And, he had a lot of hype around him as a flex play heading into Week 7. And I get the hesitation for why people weren't picking him up. We saw a decent sample size last year. He didn't look all that good. He's battled injuries this year, so I guess people wanted to see a prove-it game, but he proved it. And let's not forget how bad that offense was last year with Andrew Luck out. Luck is back. That offense is putting some points on the board. Marlon Mack needs to be owned in a lot more leagues. All right, let's take a look at some other running backs. Raheem Mostert for San Francisco. Breida is a very talented player, but at this point, it just seems like he's put together with duct tape. I mean, he just keeps getting hurt. He keeps going back out there. He keeps getting hurt again. I mean, it's only a matter of time before he has that season ender, and it looks like Mostert is going to be the guy to own. Big play potential with him. Ronald Jones, I want to talk about. He's shown a few flashes here and there. Barber, he's banged up. They haven't, as we're shooting right now, haven't announced the extent of the injury, but Ronald Jones might get his shot. Jalen Richard, and right after him in the next graphic, Doug Martin. This is a tough one to figure out. I mean, Marshawn Lynch, he's out for a while. He's probably out for the rest of the fantasy season. So who do you pick up, Richard or Martin? You don't really get excited about either of them, but Martin has not looked that good. So Richard, you're at least going to get some catches out of him. So 0.5 PPR, I do put him above Martin. I think Martin might have slightly more touchdown potential. But, if you're looking, I think they'll have flex appeal in deeper leagues each week. You're not going to get much more excited about them than that. So moving on, we got Smith for Atlanta, only on 55% of leagues. I didn't have him on the show last week because the Freeman news was released after I shot the video. But Smith, Atlanta, they are set on having a running back by committee. I think Tevin will be the majority, get the majority of the carries. But Smith is very much going to factor in. And he, as we've seen so far this year, he has some touchdown potential. So do not mind Smith. Still not giving up on Penny. Don't forget about him. He's coming off the bye. That might have given him enough time to maybe, get back on the coach's good graces. We'll see. Still not minding Penny as a bench stash, though. I know he's nothing more than that, really, at this point. But I think he's a very high upside bench stash. Kenyon Barner for New England. The Sony Michel news was good for his owners, but he's probably going to miss Week 8. So just keep that in mind. Barner could be a decent, desperation flex play if Michel ends up missing. And then Cannon for the Jets. As I'm shooting, we haven't seen the injury news, the extent of the Powell injury. Cannon would be the guy that fills that void if the injury ends up being substantial. Only on 5% of leagues right now. He could be a decent guy in PPR leagues. Let's move on to receiver. Tre'Quan Smith for New Orleans I want to talk about. He's got big play potential, and with Ted getting out of the way, he's definitely going to be a guy that's going to have some solid weeks. I do think he will be inconsistent, but I think he needs to be owned in more leagues. Tyrell Williams had another big week. He's going to be inconsistent as well, but in terms of just hit or miss guy, his ceiling is very high every week. Gallup I want to talk about, only on 10% of leagues. They did just get Amari Cooper. Dallas did. But I think that might even help Gallup. Just getting a guy that's just going to help keep the offense on the field. Cooper he's young enough. He's still got some left in the tank if he can stay healthy. But I do think Gallup, he's starting to get things going. That Dallas offense has looked better as of late. Don't mind him moving forward. And then I want to talk about the Miami situation. As we're shooting, the Wilson news hasn't been released yet on the extent of his injury. But Amendola and Grant, I think, would be big. They'd have a big boost in value if Wilson ends up missing a substantial amount of time. Amendola I like a little bit more in PPR leagues, and Grant, I mean, he's going to be kind of that boomer bust guy each week, but he does have huge big play potential. Quarterback, Mr. Trubisky. Let's talk about some Mitch magic. This guy does it again, and at this point, all the believers, all the doubters, all the haters, you got to start believing. I mean, you can't call it a fluke. He's done it too many weeks now. That's 3 really big games in a row for him, only on 55% of leagues. It's time to start believing in some Mitch magic. Dak Prescott only on 35% of leagues. Like I was just saying, that offense has looked a little bit better. Gallup's looked better. And adding Cooper to that team, I think, is only going to help. They have their bye week 8. But coming out from their bye, I think that Dallas offense has a chance for putting together a decent second half. And then Baker Mayfield, he's been decent. He's shown some flashes. But I like his schedule coming up. At Pittsburgh, then at home against Kansas City, and at home against Atlanta. You know, if you're not liking your schedule of your quarterback over the next few weeks, I think Mayfield could be a decent plug-and-play guy. Let's move over to tight end, Ben Watson. Solid game week 7, and he just keeps proving that, you know, he's not going to be the best tight end out there, but he's still a very serviceable, I would call him a low-end tight end 1. You know, his ceiling isn't super high each week, but he's proving that he has a solid floor. Chris Herndon I want to talk about with the Jets. He's quickly becoming one of Darnold's favorite targets. He's finding the end zone. He's only on 5% of leagues. Now, this is a guy I think in, you know, deeper kind of 12-team leagues, 14-team leagues. If you're looking for a bye week tight end, he's got upside. And I do want to talk about Michael Roberts for Detroit. Found the end zone a couple of times week 7, so I feel like I got to mention him. You know, I don't think he's going to be consistent at it by any means, but in deeper leagues, you know, 14, 16-team leagues, I think he does have some value. And then some defenses, pick up and play defenses for you. Pittsburgh, only on 40% of leagues. Their D's been pretty solid this year. You know, up and down a little bit, but they've had some decent fantasy success. They're at home against Cleveland. You got to like that potential there. And then New England, on the road against Buffalo, you got to think New England's D is going to have some success there. They're only owning 55% of leagues. So leave some comments. If you got questions, leave them in the comments. Josh will pick his questions straight from the comments in this video to talk about in his show later in the week, The Flex. Make sure to mention if it's PPR or standard. Good luck on the wire this week. Hopefully your teams are doing well.